it says starting recording and
All right,
transcription.
yeah, I can see it. Okay, we get like 45 minutes. Okay, so thanks, Sergeant Major Vasquez, for joining. I think that we'll keep it very informal, kind of like last time, Sergeant Major. And I did incorporate some of the content that you provided that's relevant for today's topic for the E-9 FitReps, Sergeant Major. So I do like to do a little soundbite for this PME for the recording purposes. So we'll try to keep it at 30 minutes, although we've eaten into 15 minutes of it. I try to time these to MNRA's timetables. So on the reserve side, E-9 fitness reports, the end period is in May. So this gives enough time for Marines who have to write on those fitness reports to think about it. And then where applicable, I try to make it as inclusive by component as possible. And then on the reserve side, I think the reason why we're very late on submitting fitness reports is because we don't do it all the time. And the language is different. It's different from the performance evaluations we might do in our civilian lives. So we tend to kind of delay doing that. So this is meant to break that paradigm shift. So let me just preface straight up. So back in December, a new MAR admin came out, and E-9 fitness reports back in the day, we used to just fill out the top half of the page 1 and then basically go to the section I and write some really, really long paragraphs. But the MAR admin back in December changed it, reverted the process back to our regular fitness reports, which is all 5 pages. And then I think Sergeant Major Vasquez, you were the one who brought this up last time, and it completely, I had a brain fart. You know, consider using your more senior E9s within the chain of command as trusted advisors for your E9 fitness reports. And I would say, if in fact you are writing E9 fitness reports at the battalion level, definitely utilize our E9s at the 06 level to take a look at that. They have very excellent information to provide. And Colonel Stone, I don't know if you have anything to add there, or Sergeant Major Vasquez, anything on your end?
I don't know. I failed to do that, but both of my E9s were, one was retiring, so kind of, I don't want to say it didn't matter, but it kind of didn't. And yeah, both of them are retiring. But it's a great piece of advice going forward, especially with the new FitRep. You know, even if we were used to writing the 2-pagers, this is a new ball of wax. So I'm curious to see what you know, 06 and 07 Sergeant Majors would say about this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. From what I was told from the 06 and above Sergeant Majors is they're trying to figure out a way to get data on which Sergeant Majors are ready for 06 level and above. And the paragraphs didn't do anything. There was no.
Yeah, Sergeant Major, I can't hear you if you're still talking.
Yeah, I think he froze up. He might have bad cell service in our building.
Okay.
Here. He might come back on.
All right, we'll go forward, and if he pops back in, we'll give him a chance to talk. So page 4 tax 7 in the PES manual talks about this information, that it says ROs will specifically address this, but as applicable. And it says ROs, but really it's RSs as well. So you want to be able to talk about the E9's ability to serve at the next level, with an emphasis on how they use their authority and persuasion and personality to do that. You want to talk about their operational competence, particularly like if you can think about if it happens to be like an adjointed and combined type of environment, you definitely want to call that out. A real obvious one is how they lead with commander's intent, whether it's their immediate commander or the chain of commands commander's intent. Their ability to develop and mentor Marines. Their ability to manage time and resources and to still be effective while being efficient. And then, of course, I think a really big one, if anyone who's ever been in command, their ability to use their foresight to shape recommendations for those who they support. I think that's all of us who've had at least sergeants major, that's what we appreciate. And then for Master Gunnery Sergeants, I would say the same thing, but within the context of the MOS. And Colonel Stone and I were just talking about this. For Sergeants Major, you definitely want to give the reviewers of those fitness reports an inkling what their career progression might be like beyond 05 command. Are they ready for 06 command? In the reserve side, are they ready for MSC command, FHG, the wing, all of that? And then if you're writing on a Master Gunnery Sergeant, having insight on where else they can serve in their billet, and then kind of shaping that fit and support content so that they have a chance to compete at that level would be pretty important. Colonel Stone, do you have anything to add here, since we were just chatting about this before we started?
No, again, with the new FitRep, we'll see. You know, if we're confined to Section I, vice like the pages and pages and pages of the 2-page FitRep, yeah, I'd be interested in guidance from senior sergeants major or other like MNRA types on what we ought to cram into Section I. If it's these things on the screen here, just much more condensed, then that's cool. Obviously, going back to 5 pages, that means the letters are going to spit out a FitRep average and an RV. Like eventually, RSs will develop an RV, so like that will help the powers that be determine who's going to get 06 and higher sergeant major command. So I'm interested again to see what senior sergeants major have to say about the going back to the 2-pager.
Yeah, and I'll definitely ask our sergeants major Olmsted and Gray when I see them next. Hey, Sergeant Major Vasquez, are you back on?
Yes, I can hear you guys.
Okay, great. Did you have any commentary, or we didn't hear the latter part of what you were trying to say because your screen froze up.
Yes, I pretty much said exactly what Colonel Stoner just said, that they are trying to get relative values in order to identify which sergeants majors are ready for the 06 level and above. There was nothing before where they can actually pinpoint somebody besides a paragraph here or there.
That'll be interesting for sure, especially because we're not very good at, I think, our numbers. I wanted to throw in there because I got to tell you, relatively speaking, I was very comfortable writing on Master Gunnery Sergeants, but when it came to a Sergeant Major, that was a little bit more challenging. But I've thrown in here 2 examples in my files of a Master Gunnery Sergeant FitRep and then a Sergeant Major one. And I'd be more than happy to send this out so that when the time comes and you have to write on an E-9, you have it in your hip pocket, because I didn't want to screw anyone over, but it wasn't a fitness report I was used to doing. So on this Master Guns FitRep, for this one, so I did write this one. It was on a previous command. So I talked about, these are all true statements, and I worked pretty closely with this Master Gunnery Sergeant. So first piece of advice is, if you have to write these fitness reports, really spend a lot of time observing those Marines and getting to know them, so that it's not a feeling of like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to write. It should never come down to that. So in this Master Guns, what I had said was, he was even-tempered, he was a calming force. And we happened to be operating a lot in joint and combined environments. So I was able to say that. And then he did position himself at points of friction, and he mitigated a lot of issues with us within the unit. So it never bubbled up to my level. And because I had the opportunity to observe him, he didn't tell me this. It was just that I would see him, talking to certain key billet holders when we'd have drills and things like that. And it would never bubble up to my level. So this was a true observation. And then this third paragraph, it was just particular opportunities. So we unfortunately had an E7 who was selected to E8, and he couldn't pin on because he got in trouble. And the situation started out really well. The E7 owned up to it. Things were going well. And then as time went on, he started getting more and more and more bitter. And he was based as a civilian out of the NCR, the National Capital Region. And it was fast going to become a problem. But our Master Guns did a fantastic job of sharing as much information on what the process was for where MNRA was at in potentially restoring his promotion, sharing what within the command, what was going on. And that meant the world to this situation, because the E7 ended up not hiring an attorney, and he was able to leave us with as good of a reputation as he possibly could. And it gave him an opportunity as new command to recompete for that. And, to me, it was an opportunity to redeem himself. But had he left with the kind of that bitter taste in all of our mouths, if he had hired an attorney and it was a long drawn out battle, it would have been a problem. So Master Guns did that for us. And then just like, a whole, like a parting statement, like you would in any fitness support, where do you think that this person should serve? Because I would suspect, like any other group that determines the the future viability of Marines and where they should go, that they really take into consideration what the RS or the RO have to say about it. So let me pause there again if there's any commentary questions on this one.
I will say one thing, ma'am, about
Mhm.
the selection for 06 and above. It's at the MSc level, the sergeant major has to send a report quarterly to the MNRA sergeant major on where his 05 level sergeant majors are at and what they're ready for. So I think having an RS who has to write on an 05 and below, I'm sorry, an 05 sergeant major, having that relationship with that MSc sergeant major on where does he see them with all the enlisted stuff behind the scenes would help that RS write the FitRep out also.
That's great. I'm so glad you're on this call, Sergeant Major, because these were the unknowns that Colonel Stona and I were wondering about. So it's helpful that you were able to illuminate. I didn't know that. In fact, I want to understand a little bit more of the secrecy behind the slating that goes on with the sergeants major. So, okay, let's go on. So hold on. If y'all could just hold on 1 second, I need to communicate with a civilian coworker because she and I were supposed to meet in about 5 minutes, so I'll delay her. Okay, so next one. So here is a sergeant major fitness report. And I thought this was super well written. It was, I didn't write it, but I just got my hands on it. And there was a number of things that happened at this Marine Wing Support Squadron that the sergeant major was, you know, a key leader in helping shape and helping them accomplish their mission. So this RS started out with a little bit of context. Like this squadron, a reserve squadron, had over 600 Marines, and it's the largest squadron in 4th Marine Aircraft Wing. So that sets the stage. Let's see. He, you know, handled all the senior enlisted matters across 3 different units within this particular squadron. Again, more context. And it was an unfortunate situation, but there was an HADR. There were several HADR missions, and I think in this one, yeah, it was a downed aircraft that the squadron had to respond to, and they did so in a successful manner. The CO saying, "Hey, it couldn't have done it without the sergeant major." Let's see, talks about you know, flawless and undying and all those types of adjectives when it comes to administrative stuff, because sergeant major, every good sergeant major has like the S1 in their hip pocket. Let's see here. And at the same time, while they're a sergeant major, it's interesting, you know, how do they manage the ability to be able to be collaborative? You know, they are in a position of power, but behind the scenes, are they collaborative enough? Are they mentoring enough staff NCOs to one day take their position, but yet still leading those Marines? It's kind of, I mean, I don't know if anyone has had any other civilian experience, but it's kind of like that civilian experience, and definitely want to talk about something like that. Let's see here. The written and verbal communication, because yeah, if they can't articulate what they're saying verbally to Marines and motivate them that way, that's a problem. And certainly if they can't write clear emails at that point in their career, it's going to definitely be a problem. The coordination between adjacent and higher commands is important. That goes along with commander's intent. And then let's see here. Showing his signs, yeah, just a little comment about whether or not he was, you know, plateauing, if he was a sergeant major, or if he still had enough energy to go on. And then achieving positive end states. And you know, this particular squadron, they won like Marine Reserve Unit of the Year, DCINL selection award process. So that was called out. And then again, ending, where do you see this sergeant major? Could they serve for them? Could they serve in a Marine aircraft group, a regiment, whatever it is? And so you make that comment there. So, all right, go on. So I said this last time, and Sergeant Major Vasquez, maybe you can remember this. So the next set of slides are just a number of resources that we could refer to. So the first is this effective phrases for performance evaluations. At least when I went to TBS, this was a book that was going around, and you could buy it in Quantico Town. You can buy it on Amazon if you want for $21. And here's what the page looks like if you've never seen it. So they divide up the pages by adjectives. So initiative, planning, innovation, whatever it is. And then here are just some blurbs that you might potentially put in your fitness reports. So for initiative, takes charge in the absence of detailed instructions. If you feel that this is the person, the E-9 you're riding on, this can kind of give you some inspiration. But I would say, though, is be super careful, because some of these phrases, if you do decide the book, they can be negative depending on the context. Like, if I put an E-9 fitness report requires minimal supervision, I think anyone who looks at that would laugh at that. It's a given that they'd be able to, proceed with minimal supervision. So be super, super careful, just like with any of these other resources I'll point out. A resource that I think is becoming more and more popular is ChatGPT, and I do think we need to call it out for what it is, but you've got to be very, very careful with it. So I do use ChatGPT in my civilian life. I use it often like a collaborator, like a virtual collaborator, and I do it for some of my Marine Corps stuff. And so one way in which you could use it is, it starts out with what I can help you with. And so to better focus the machine on what it is you're doing, you could say, hey, you're a Marine Corps officer who's writing a military fitness report. Say yes if you understand. And if the machine comes back and says yes, then it's a little bit more focused. And then I never just say, write a fitness report for me. I usually am like, maybe this might be the 8th fitness report I'm writing in an hour and I'm brain dead. And so I know generally what I want to say, but I'm just like, cannot put it all together. So I'll throw that blurb into there. Like, make this fitness report sentence more succinct. Sergeant X's make it happen at, or Sergeant Major X's make it happen attitude and execution in regard to blah, blah, blah. They were significant. And then I want to say that, they're mature and they're confident and they're professional, but I just can't find the words. Throw it in there. ChatGPT spits stuff out. But you always want to check for inaccuracies, which they call our hallucinations. If you can't defend it, even if it sounds great, do not include it. And then just some other pieces of advice. I personally feel, even in my civilian life, never to use ChatGPT because I'm lazy. Because eventually I will not have a job if that's how I'm using it. You will never, never, never use real names, unit names, dates, or other identifiers, because once it's in the machine and it's out there in all the world, it'll be there forever. And then there's this AI motto that says, start with a human and end with a human. So, you're starting with a human at step 1, and in step 3, you're checking, you're verifying, because you don't want anything that's inaccurate. And it's not fair to the Marine too. If you're writing something that's like, that isn't who I am. I wonder why they did that. Oh, because they put it in ChatGPT. That's kind of sucks, and that's not good leadership. Okay. But Sergeant Major Vasquez told us about another resource, Camo GPT, and there's the MAR admin right there. And so it's the Army's version of ChatGPT. And I can tell from reading this, it's like many different organizations. So at least in my civilian life, I'm finding that a lot of companies are taking ChatGPT and they're personalizing it, or they're creating that information and they're bringing it over into the organization's domain, because they're worried about, they know that team members, people within their organizations, will want to use something like ChatGPT, and they're afraid of data and other like proprietary stuff slipping out into all the world. So they're creating their own instance of it within their organization, and this is the Army's instance. So they're using retrieval augmentation generation. Basically, what that is it's basically taking what would be in ChatGPT, and then they're adding all of the proprietary information into it, so that it becomes something therefore useful within the organization. And so there's the MAR admin. Sergeant Major, I personally have not logged into Camo GPT, more than likely because I felt like I'd have to give it tons of information and I probably wouldn't be able to get in. But have you been able to use it?
Yes, ma'am. I use it every single day.
You like it?
I do, ma'am. Sometimes I use ChatGPT for some school stuff that I'm in. But when it comes to anything Marine Corps related or emails, I use Camo GPT, because the information that I get from Camo GPT, I feel like it's more military related. And it's behind CAC enabled I feel like it's safer, personally.
Okay. Yeah. And you know what? I can just tell you, working in the IT world, I know it's safer. So that should probably be everyone's first choice over ChatGPT. And now that you've endorsed it, I think I'm going to try it myself. What I think is super interesting is that they have a zipper version of it. That is incredible. And again, it's just in a secure domain. You know, it's all the same information, just within a secure domain. But I'm just curious if if folks put stuff in there, and Zipper and all the classified stuff is supposed to be like the truest thing, how hallucinations work in a Zipper environment. That to me would be pretty interesting, but it's available on Zipper. And then there's also Nipper GPT, which is the Air Force versions of that. And Sergeant Major, have you tried the Nipper GPT?
I have not, ma'am. I'll be honest, Colonel Stone is the one that put all of us onto Camel GPT, and that's what we used. You use as a command. I haven't had a chance to even look up to Nipper yet.
Really? Colonel Stoner, your thoughts on Camo GPT, your likes and dislikes?
Yeah, just like Sergeant Major said, the fact that it's CAC enabled, gives me some. Yeah, I assume it's got a little more ComSec, some more ComSec like guidelines. What do you call them? I can't think of the word. Safety measures are in place for Camo GPT. Yeah, security. Guardrails is the word I was looking for.
Okay.
Guardrail, because it's CAC enabled. Obviously only military types are using it, or somebody with a CAC card is using it. I don't know that it can access CAC enabled websites itself. I don't know that it has a CAC, but still, the fact that it is CAC enabled makes me just feel a little better about using it. I haven't tried the Nipper one, the Air Force one, because camos work pretty well for me.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's absolutely more secure, because it's an instance of what we would see on ChatGPT brought into the secure network of whatever our CAC stuff is. And I'd be curious how, with more and more information being fed in ChatGPT, how often they might bring in the learnings from ChatGPT within like a Camo GPT environment. Like if the administrators were here, I'd be curious about it. But okay, you all are selling me on it. I'm definitely going to try it. So this ends the conversation here. And so I'm going to stop sharing. And Major Johnson, did you have any questions of us? Now's your chance to ask.
No, ma'am. Pretty straightforward. And Sergeant Major did provide a lot of useful information, and just some notes I was taking, basically using those higher level sergeant majors and see what the sergeant major at the 05 level, what potential they have for the 06 or the MSc or higher. That was very useful information, as well as just seeing how well these sergeant majors collaborate with other sergeant majors, whether it's adjacent units, subordinate units, like how they have that top-down perspective and not just like tunnel vision into everything. How well can they cooperate? Because a lot of sergeant majors, they can make things happen behind the scenes. It's like, oh, thanks, Sergeant Major, this couldn't happen without your assistance. So just how creative they are, how basically just how creative they are as far as just getting things done legally, obviously. But yeah, it's a lot of user information, because I've only done one E-9, and it was before they made the changes. So it was like, sir, this is all you got to do and you're done. Obviously, I left some kind comments like, I thank you for your service, your sacrifice. But actually just moving forward, if I do end up with an E-9 under my command, it's like, okay, now I'm better prepared for actually giving them the due diligence and like the comments that they deserve based on their hard work and contributions.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. You know what? And let's see here. If Colonel Stone, if you could just stop recording so that it's just a shorter video for us to post on the thing. I can just have Major Norton edit it as well. Okay. Well, Major Johnson, I'll